I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Billy Luedtke, co-founder and CEO of Intuition, here to talk about all things blockchain information on the blockchain. And information is so important nowadays because of all the craziness going on outside of the blockchain world, what's real, what's not, and also people's personal information, giving it away, selling it, taking advantage of it so people become the product, and providing a lot of information to companies and not really getting any money or value out of that as well. I feel like blockchain solves a lot of those. I'm excited to dive into that today with you, Billy. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I am also excited to dive in. Let's do it.
Definitely. Let's start with a high level on what you and your team have been working on at Intuition, how it relates to information on the blockchain, and then we can dive into those details.
Yeah, so what we've been working on, it's aptly named Intuition because it is an attempt to give all things, people or machines, better or non-people, I guess, any entity, better intuition in all of their interactions. And so the way that you get good intuition about stuff is you get good data about it. So, let's say you spend every day with your wife, you start collecting data about her through personal experience. And then when you go to interact with her, like you have a good intuition about how to interact and how she's going to respond when you say a specific thing. So the thought behind all of this was, okay, how do we scale that? So there's all of this information that's scattered across the web, and there's all of this information that's only in people's heads right now. Like how can we make use of, like the world's aggregate intuition or like the world's aggregate data set? So in order to do that, you kind of have to solve two things, and I won't go too deep down the rabbit hole right now, but one thing is you need to get the information from people's heads out there because a lot of it's unexpressed right now. So, I've never written an Amazon review, I've never written a Yelp review, never done a LinkedIn endorsement. But if you ask me about stuff, I'll tell you. But
Yeah.
we have to have a conversation, so it's not super efficient. So the data is not even out there for anyone to use for a lot of this stuff. It's only in our heads. And then the other problem is there is a lot of good information out there, but it's kind of scattered all over the place. It's monopolized by the big tech giants. Like people aren't, capturing any value from it. So it's like, okay, the two steps are get more information out there. And then once the information's out there, don't capture it in the centralized silos of Amazon, Google, Yelp, whatever. Store open, permissionless, decentralized knowledge graph that's kind of like universally accessible. The data is all cleaned up, so you can kind of see things across platforms. And I think with that, then you can kind of just you can get like a higher resolution of uh, the world because you just have more information as you go to interact with anything, whether that's buying a product or doing a swap or hiring someone or trying to invest in a project. Any decision that you're making, you need information to make that decision, and we just want to help people make good decisions is really all it is.
Definitely. No, it's a great problem to solve because I feel like right now information it's also biased. If you're talking about reviews, only people that disagree or didn't like the product write a review, and people that like it, they don't have time. They're either enjoying it or it's just too much effort. If you had a personalized AI to quickly ask you about something and it was convenient, and that would log that and then have it in a decentralized database that actually has sort of a true sense of what the information is on this product, not just the people that hated it. That's one good example, but I feel like it's definitely, I feel like these kind of review things and this example is like, we're going to look back on it in probably even a few years. Blockchain AI will come in and we'll be like, oh my God, that was like 90s stuff. Like that was old school. People used to manually write reviews. So uh, what do you think about and is this part of Intuition with AI and how that's going to help shape it? Of course, blockchain and decentralized networks are important for storing the information, but inputting it, and because I feel like right now with OpenAI and people using LLMs, that's also an issue with, as you gave an example in the beginning about your wife, the AI is starting to learn how we interact with it, but it's like it's a mess as well.
100%. Yeah, no, AI has been actually so to take a step back, when 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 I started Intuition, the actual goal was always I was a very early like beta ChatGPT user, an OpenAI user, and I saw it coming, I think, a little bit earlier than most. I had some crazy conversations where like it was I think they throttled it because early on I had some conversations where it was funny and witty and I was like, "Oh my God,
Mm,
this is sentient." And I saw this thing coming and I was like, "Okay, you know, if we view this as the collective conscious, like that collective conscious needs this intuition module. So if we
Mhm,
think of like, we're collecting all of humanity's information inside the single artificial being, like that thing needs intuition.
mhm.
And the way
Yeah.
it gets its intuition is we crowdsource our intuition and then give
Mhm,
it to that. So
mhm,
that's actually where this all came from. And then I didn't expect things to move so fast, and AI has actually been kind of like solving quite a lot of problems for us. So the tie-in for us with AI is kind of multifaceted. So first I'll explain kind of how it helps us, and then I'll explain kind of the arenas in which we're playing in the realm of AI. So how it helps us is one, as you mentioned, manually creating reviews probably going to feel very primitive in the future, and it'll just kind of like be user action based, and it's probably something running in the background and the AI is kind of interpreting
mhm.
different things they're doing, and it's just kind of like posting this data to the intuition knowledge graph as opposed to you like manually typing out some long form review. That just seems insane. So on the data creation side, it actually helps so much, and there's actually some we have a really cool community of developers. One of them just built this. It's kind of like grass, but it just lives in your browser. It's called what the heck's it called? Oh my God, Sophia. It's called
Mm,
Sophia, and it just takes all your web browsing activity and it transforms it into these semantic triples that you can then post to the intuition knowledge
mm,
graph. So it like extracts relevant semantics from your activity as opposed to like taking
mhm,
all the data. There's probably some private stuff in there too. Like you don't want it to
mhm.
see all the data. You want it to
Yeah.
like extract relevant
Mhm,
stuff. And it extracts relevant stuff and then post. It's pretty cool. So it helps on the data creation front. And then on the data reading front, we were always like, okay, what the heck does the interface for, this intuition thing look like? And the answer I think is increasingly becoming it just looks like chat. Like all it is as you go to interact with the AI, which I think is like kind of going to be the interface of the future, the AI just has better intuition about who you are and your social graph, or not even your social graph, but the people you trust in different contexts. So it's like,
mhm,
uh, you know, I go to book a restaurant reservation, I'm not going to manually sift through the reviews. I'm just going to ask the AI, hey, can you book a dinner reservation on my behalf? And that's all I'm going to say.
mhm,
And it's gonna be like, oh, I know you like
mhm,
sushi and you trust these people in the context of sushi. You haven't had it in a while and they like this restaurant in your area. Now you get like a really good
mhm.
response. So that's kind of it kind of solves both the data in and the data out problem for us in a way that we were, thinking for a long time about, okay, how is this going to look? And AI just came along and I think solved a lot of it for us.
Definitely. And I'd love to dive into more on uh, where it's at and in the near future, the plans. Um, Maybe we could start with, it sounds like you've been in this for a while, being a beta user of ChatGPT, and now understanding intuition, building up over a few years into what it's become right now. Can you talk about how far you've come and sort of what are users capable of doing today or in the very near future?
Yeah, so we've come a long way from a crazy idea about crowdsourcing humanity's intuition to now having this protocol that is live and stable and has been used in production for a while. So I guess the current state of things is we were running a beta of our protocol on base mainnet with like
Mm-hmm.
real ETH. So it was handling real economic value for a while, and then we had some partners who wanted to do like things that required, tens of millions of transactions, and it
Mm-hmm.
was going to be kind of cost prohibitive on base. And so we're like, okay, let us prioritize the rollout of our own network. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got our own base L3 in testnet now that's going to be going to mainnet at the same time as our TGE.
Cool.
Um, so that's the state of, we have like three things. We have like our network, and then we have the protocol. So the protocol gets deployed to the network, and then we have kind of all this backend architecture that's off chain that kind of I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but like there's pieces of intuition that need to live on chain, and then there's pieces that need to live off chain,
Mm-hmm.
and that are kind of like I call it like the Rust subnet. The Rust subnet takes the on-chain stuff and the off-chain stuff and smushes it together into
Mm-hmm.
this one big knowledge graph.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this stuff is like we've been working on it for, 3 years now, and it's now just becoming production ready. We're just like comfortable with people building stuff on top of it. So, the foundation has now been laid, and now it's a game of building the ecosystem, getting developers to build stuff on top, us building stuff on top ourselves. We have so many, I think, very exciting product ideas that, like right now, it probably doesn't make that much sense to people because all we have is this Explorer where it's very generalized. It's not really an application experience. It's just like, here's some data. You can create data in this graph if you want to, but now we're going to lean into like very specific use case centered things. And I think it will start making a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense to a lot of people very soon. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a big feat organizing the world's intuition, not just
Yeah.
information, but the information in their heads. And in the process of organizing that, from what I saw with intuition, it's called like knowledge graphs, and in this case, token curated knowledge graphs. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more in the information and then how it actually goes into the protocol and the network and becomes organized and then becomes usable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to frame knowledge graphs generally, that's kind of what you are using right now to interact with the internet. So like you could think like Google has a knowledge graph that's centralized, and then they put PageRank in front of it and they let you
Mm-hmm.
search. And Facebook has a knowledge graph, and like so they have social graphs, they have interest graphs. It's like, but the superset is like knowledge graph. So they have
Mm-hmm.
it, and then they let you find people, they let you find posts that you like all of the web is kind of built on top of this general concept. And so the thought is, how can we decouple that from the applications or the platforms and
Mm-hmm.
and have like one communal one? Because what you get when you have these like centralized knowledge graphs is they're not interoperable. So I can't take
Mm-hmm.
my Twitter following to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and overlay the reviews with the people I trust. And I can't take, like things are the whole web is just fragmented
Mm-hmm.
because it's not one big graph, it's lots of little graphs. And Tim Berners-Lee, who is actually the or inventor of the World Wide Web, he wanted this thing called the semantic web, which was just like the web as one big semantic graph.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried and they failed because they couldn't get people to conform to these standards because it's like, okay, the whole world needs to cooperate and agree on the standards. We can't do that. But now with crypto, like the whole
Mm-hmm.
intuition is we can have distributed social consensus. Like we can use crypto economics to come to distributed consensus on things. Let's use these crypto economic incentives to come to consensus on those same standards that are required to do this like internet standardization effort.
Mm-hmm.
So what intuition looks like under the hood is like it's like it's two things. One, it's like a consensus mechanism for the state of decentralized systems. So right now we're coming to consensus on the state, which is, you know, there is a ledger and it has this state, and we all agree this is the state.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't have is like one level, one fractal above that, where it's like, okay, what is the state of the state? Like, what are the standards we're using? What are the schemas we're using to structure the data? Like, we don't have crypto economic incentives for that. So, what if we applied the same primitives just one level higher up the stack, and we can all speaking the same language? It's pretty much a language game. It's like, okay, let's use
Mm-hmm.
crypto economics to all speak the same language on the internet, and then things can be interoperable. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is we take data and we break it down into these discrete ownable units called atoms. So atoms are kind of just like the basic building blocks of the graph. And then you can compose them into higher order structures. So you could think of it just like real life, where you got like molecules and compounds, and then people. So you take these little guys and you just build them up into whatever you want, like higher order concepts. And because you start with this like singular primitive that has each atom has a token, so you can own data and you can own data
Mm-hmm.
structures because we've like broken the data down into these discrete tokenized ownable units.
Mm-hmm.
So as you contribute data to the graph, you get tokens of the data you've created.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know who owns what data, so we can create programmatic value flows through the data. So as the data gets used or interacted with in any way, we
Hmm.
can like move the revenue to the people who data in the first place. I'll pause there because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect segue because I wanted to ask about that sort of the difference in everyone sort of understands from a high level that in decentralized networks and blockchain, ideally, if you're contributing information or data, then you should own it or you should be able to earn from it. And whether it's some kind of value of a cryptocurrency or some kind of internal token, and in perpetuity is always nice as well. So how does that work? Like, could you walk me through if I was like, for example, myself, I was a power user and I just what I'm doing, maybe passively, maybe actively in the data that I'm contributing to the network, how that works, and then how I receive the value back.
So how it works is it depends on the interface through which you're doing the interacting. So it depends on
Mm-hmm.
like the application, and I'll frame what it looks like with one example of what it could look like. I'll use two examples just so we don't get locked into one. So one example is, intuition has now replaced the like button on YouTube. So now, a like on YouTube is just an attestation that you like the video. Amazing. So now let's say you watch the video and you see no, like not many people have liked it yet. So you're an early liker of the video, and then a million people come in and like it after you, or a million people come in and watch it after you, you make money for having liked the video early. So it can be as simple as the like button. And what you're doing is you're providing signal to you, like to people and to YouTube that, hey, this video is worth consuming. So there's inherent value in the
Mm-hmm.
data you're creating. You're just not seeing the value. And now we can,
Mm-hmm.
it's very simple. Like we just let you like capture some of the value from like the activity that the data you create sees. Another example is like, TikTok. It's like, okay, I'm on TikTok and I'm curating the algorithm for me and
Mm-hmm.
for all of TikTok by liking things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that is useful signal, and that like the money from that signal is being captured by TikTok entirely. So
Mm-hmm.
what if every TikTok like or every emoji reaction on Facebook or every comment or every review, like we can just take all the actions we're doing on the internet right now, and you can look at every action as an attestation, because all an
Mm-hmm.
attestation is like something claiming something about something. So it's like, if I scroll on a web page, the web page could claim, hey, Billy scrolled on the web page. If
Mm-hmm.
I like a tweet, it's like, hey, Billy likes the tweet. If I do an emoji reaction, if I do a text message, it's all just attestations. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything is that. So what it looks like is the internet right now, but maybe at the end of the week or at the end of the month, if you're not a super power user, it's like, hey, you have made $200 from your activity or $500 or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great example that I think most people don't think of when they think I'm contributing to the internet and I'm getting value. Like they think like I have to write an article or I actually have to create a website page, but they don't realize that if you're like liking a YouTube video early on, that is pushing the algorithm towards more people to watch it, and that YouTube video and YouTube are both making more money because every time you click, other people click. So you're really sending people to the video, and you should be rewarded for that, even though you just think I'm just liking the video because I like it, right? But there's actually value that you're creating from liking it. So yeah, that's a great example, and that leads me to the next question of like sort of gaming the system. People think early on, I'm sure it works out in the long term probably, but let's just say people think, okay, I can like videos or posts and make money. I'm just going to like everything. So where's the quality of the data come in, and is that an issue of just like liking and commenting and sort of spamming information?
Yeah, so the quality comes from two places. So place number one is everything in the system costs like what you can think of as a gas fee. So just like, okay, think of this is totally permissionless and decentralized. If it was free, we would just get Sybil and DOS attacked to death, and then day one, the whole thing would die. So anytime you have something that like is decentralized and permissionless, you got to like pay some gas to do it. So there's some economic cost. So
Mm-hmm.
no longer are the likes free; they cost a little bit, and you can
Mm-hmm.
also buy more likes like you don't just get one like anymore. You can buy any arbitrary number of shares of anything, so or tokens of anything, and so you can take speculative economic bets on the relevancy of data as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
it just being like one like. Maybe the application restricts you to one like, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe some other application overlays that same information, lets you buy more than one like. So um, that's one piece of it is things cost money. And for the end user, it doesn't have to be this frictionful experience. So if you think about it, it's like uh let's take YouTube and every app has a premium service now. So you paid $20 a month for Twitter, you paid I don't know how much for YouTube, I don't pay for it, but imagine YouTube says, "Hey, do you want to make money from your likes? Pay us $20 a month
Mm-hmm.
and now you can start making money on YouTube."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and in the background, they can just be handling all the tokens and
Mm-hmm.
buying the tokens with the $20 a month. And maybe you run out at some point and they say, hey, you got a refill. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
AA right now, where they say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you have this limit, and if you want more, you can buy more. So it's the same model. It's just you can
Mm-hmm.
have the subscription model where all the crypto is abstracted away from the users.
Mm-hmm.
They're just liking stuff. They're paying a $5 a month subscription fee, but behind the scenes, that money is going towards purchasing the trust token and depositing the trust token on all these actions that they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that's one thing that combats it. The second thing is what's so cool that like this is my favorite part of intuition is when you abstract the data from the platform, there's a lot of interesting overlapping concentric circles that start to emerge. So like an example of this is I gave this before, but I can take all my social graphs from all these different platforms and extract them from the platforms and overlay all data with I call them trust graphs as opposed to social graphs because I might not know you, but I might trust you. Like Dr. Huberman, I'm not his friend, but
Mm-hmm.
I trust him. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can have these contextual trust graphs where it's like I trust Dr. Huberman in the context of supplements, and I
Mm-hmm.
trust Vitalik in the context of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have these contextual trust graphs, and then you can overlay the information with those. And because now you have verifiable attribution of who's saying what, you've decoupled the identities from the platforms. It's like, okay, just give me the videos on YouTube that the people I trust have liked.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get rid of all the bots. Or you could say, like, give me all the videos where it's like people 3 degrees of separation away from me have liked
Mm-hmm.
them. Or you weight things accordingly. So it's very reputation based. Like you get this web of trust based search, whereas opposed to
Mm-hmm.
like searching for stuff being very generalized right now, you can actually
Mm-hmm.
search for anything across the web using like your now extracted trust graphs of who
Mm-hmm.
is saying what that you trust.
Yeah, no, curating that information from the people that you trust is a lot more important than, most of the time you're searching for something obscure and it's just from some nobody that has one post and it's like, well, this is all I can find, so I'll go with it. But like who wrote that? Who knows? So and with the, interesting social graphs moving into trust graphs, from what I understand, the token currency inside of the ecosystem also is the trust token. Can you talk a little bit about the crypto side and the token and how it functions within the ecosystem?
Yeah, so in intuition, you're putting your trust into things. So every interaction in the intuition system requires trust. So anytime you go to like create or read any piece of data, you got to pay like trust tokens. So
Mm,
in the YouTube example, it's like you are putting your trust into
mhm,
the video.
mhm,
And so like I think it's aptly named because you're trusting things. Like you could put your trust into
mhm,
a person and you can
mhm,
put your trust into a product or a podcast or a book. So you're just trusting things. And then as you trust things, you get, ownership of the things that you trust. And then as other people also trust those things, or as people, read the data, maybe they pay like a cost per query and it's like, hey, you pay 10 cents to do a AI prompt and the AI prompt traverses the data. Now we know who owns what data, so we can flow that revenue to the people who own the data in the first place. So basically, it's the native gas token of our network, so there's some fees there. It's the kind of protocol fee thing for our protocol. So you got to like every action has like a small protocol fee. That's how like the protocol and intuition self-sustains is through those two mechanisms. And then like as you go to buy shares of data, pretty much, uh, you gotta use trust to do that. And then we also have this concept of staking. So, we've got like all this infrastructure that kind of needs to be maintained. So you can stake and you can just normal staking stuff. So you can stake to generate yield. And yeah, like that's kind of what we've built. But again, it's not a useless governance token. It's used for governance too, but like like that's just like an aside. But
Hmm.
also you're starting to see, our whole ecosystem of developers like starting to build apps that also use trust. So, we've got like
Hmm.
oracles and we've got lending protocols and we've got like a bunch of things that are all starting to like adopt this trust token for their own thing. So you can do a lot with it, but the core protocol stuff is like creating like putting your trust into the data that you care about.
Definitely. And I completely understand how for example, you need to like a video to prevent the spam, and because it's a blockchain network, you need to process a
Exactly.
microtransaction, although it's
Yeah.
very small amounts. If it was zero, then you could just be clicking all day and mess with the system. There needs to be an inherent cost to doing any action, and then having part of that go into the sustainability of the protocol makes sense as well. So, so you talked about staking there, but earlier you also talked about sort of abstracting all of the crypto and the stuff that you don't have to confirm a transaction and figure out your wallet and all this like technical things that hopefully we can adopt this beyond crypto native people to the whole web, which is a lot. What's the goal for expansion in sort of abstracting the crypto native stuff away and trying to get people that aren't in crypto involved in this as well?
Yeah. My whole goal is to like give this app like give an intuition app to my mom and be like, "Hey mom, like use this." Or like send her a link to something on intuition and then from there she just red pilled on the experience and she doesn't need to know anything about crypto. She doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
to like she's got her Coinbase, but it's like, "Hey, stay in
Mm-hmm.
Coinbase. You don't get the MetaMask, you're going to get scammed." So it's like if I think that a lot of the infrastructure to do that is it's getting there. I'd say it's like almost at the point for mass adoption. I don't think it's quite there yet. So I'd say
Mm-hmm.
maybe one more year of, account abstraction and smart wallets and pay masters and meta transactions and things like that. But we're like fast approaching this point where all of it can just very easily be abstracted away. And there's a lot of amazing teams working on that infrastructure. Actually, like my team, Uport from back in the day, this was like the first self-sovereign identity thing on Ethereum. And we actually invented meta transactions. Like I wasn't the one to do it, but the team did it because basically it was the first thing where you would deploy kind of like a proxy smart contract that would act as your identity, just in case. So like basically we were trying to do like identity on chain, and so you needed some identifier to correlate the data to. And we were like, oh well, it can't be an like an EOA because you might need to rotate keys. So you need a proxy like this was like the first versions of the smart contract wallets. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you need a smart contract wallet so you could rotate the keys for ownership in case you lose it or get hacked. And we had all these so cool social recovery things. But to deploy the smart contract identity to Ethereum costs like $5. And
Mm-hmm.
we're like, holy shit, how are we going to onboard the world if people have
Yeah.
to pay $5 to create their identity? Like the first step of the process is pay $5. And we're like, there's no way. So we invented meta transactions where it's like we had this server that would just like pay people's transactions for them and then open sourced it and it became this whole ecosystem of like, gas sponsorship stuff. So Uport, shout out Uport. That's where a lot of this account abstraction stuff came from.
Definitely. And I'm excited that I feel like the floodgates are already opening. Just not just everyday retail users, but the institutions and the ETFs and the treasuries and everything. They're getting involved, and then there's a lot of mind power going towards how can we make this easier and lower the barriers to entry so we can get our clients that are in the traditional financial world, our parents and grandparents, to get in without them, make it easy for them. So yeah, let's get that abstraction going. So between now and then, and let's talk more in the near term for Q4 2025 and the launch. I know that Trust was just on CoinList, and now it's launching to the public. Can you talk about sort of the Q4? What's the plan right now and to the end of this year, moving into 2026?
Yeah, so the plan is uh if you're watching this ahead of this, TGE is currently slated for October 15th, obviously kind of at the whim of the folks who help make that happen, like the exchanges. So please don't hold us to that date. Like we have no control, but that's kind of our target. Coinciding with that will be mainnet launch of our network, mainnet launch of our protocol, mainnet
Mm.
launch of like our back end. And from that point forward, like there's it bifurcates. So basically, just like the Ethereum Foundation and ConsenSys kind of bifurcated back in early Ethereum days, where it's like Ethereum Foundation focused on the Ethereum protocol, ConsenSys started building all these apps like MetaMask and Infura and
Mhm.
Truffle and stuff like that. So the same thing's going to have to happen here, where there's like the protocol is always going to need to be continued. Like someone needs to maintain the protocol and continue to evolve it. There's an infinite amount of work to do on that front. So we're probably going to, as you know, intuition people, core contributors, a lot of core contributors will need to like maintain the protocol and the developer experience as opposed to like focusing on building, specific apps on top. Like there's a lot of people already building specific apps on top.
Mhm.
We want to be less opinionated about that and just give developers the tools they need to be able to integrate this into whatever they're building. But at the same time, we have some ideas that we really want to build ourselves, and we don't want to have to be reliant on other people to build them. So we will also be focusing on the application layer and trying to get, I really want to use crypto every day. I've been in crypto since
Mhm.
2012. I don't use crypto. Like I use it once every couple of weeks to do a swap or like
Mhm.
lend and borrow. It's like I've dedicated my whole life to this and I don't use it. Like it's absolutely insane.
Uh-huh.
And maybe stable coins make it happen behind the scenes, but that's so uninteresting to me. Like I
Mhm.
want crypto enabled apps that I use on a daily basis. So I want to build the first one of that where,
Mhm.
information related. I want to use it intuition to help me search for stuff, keep track of stuff that I come across, just stuff like that. So that's kind of
Yeah.
our plan is protocol evolution and application layer evolution.
It's very cool, very exciting, and best of luck moving into the October 15th date and then the mainnet launch of all the protocol. And as you were mentioning earlier about being the first to like a YouTube video because you're an early adopter, I think most people watching and the crypto holders are early adopter. They say we're all early, but to get into something like this early is also, there's benefits as well to exploring this kind of stuff. So I'm going to check it out. I will leave a link to in the show notes to the site and the socials and more information so people can follow along. Wishing you guys all the best and would love to have you back on when the mainnet launches near the end of the year. And there's so much more to do. It's just the beginning, as you said, making abstracting it out and making all these applications and integrating it actually into the web so everybody, including our parents and grandparents, can start trusting things and earning in crypto without even knowing it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashton. That was a perfect explainer, and thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, would love to do it again. This is great. Appreciate you having me.